You're watching KMNH, Kids Making the News Happen.
I'm Omer, and today is Monday, April 20th. On Mondays, I always like to start the broadcast with our viewer feedback and make sure that our fans know how much we appreciate them. I know I wouldn't be here if it weren't for all of you. My mom, my dad, my grandma, my aunt that's watching. But anyways, I found this note to catch me a little off guard. It says, "Dear Omer and Larkin, love your broadcast, but I have a question or even a concern. Do you always wear a tuxedo and suit all the time? Do you need some other clothes? You look great, but maybe you want to switch it off." Signed, Betsy from Lebanon, Ohio. Well, Betsy, thanks for your concern. I feel like I must explain that this is not just a tuxedo, Betsy, and it's not just a uniform. It's a brand. And yes, I only have one brand.
It's going to be mostly sunny today, and we're going to have a high of 61 and a low of 40.
The Echoing Green by William Blake. The sun does arise and make happy the skies. The merry bells ring to welcome the spring. The skylark and thrush, the birds of the bush, sing louder around to the bells' cheerful sound, while our sport shall be seen on the echoing green.
This is Thaddeus with the weather.
And now here is today's Make It segment.
Hi, I'm Prairie.
And I'm Elliot.
We want to show you how to make a flower in a book. So you just need a book with some paper in it, and then you need a string and some ink or paint. Paint works too. Okay, so we're just going to dip this in here, into the paint or into the ink.
Oh, I thought we get to use that dipper thing. That squirty thing.
Squirty thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to get it covering the string. I'm going to do it and then Elliot's going to do it.
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay. Ready?
That's a lot of string with paint.
Okay, so you're going to start it like this. Then you're going to put it like in a bit of an S. And then you pull it down. And then you shut the book.
Splat.
You hold it.
Dee 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 dee.
Cool. You just pull straight out.
Let's see if.
Which is fine. I'm just going to. Let's see what it turns out. See if we can do it again. Pull it apart. It looks like that. So we'll do it again. And Elliot can do a turn. Ready? Be careful. Down, down. And then like an S. We'll see what this one turns out like. Okay, and then you shut the book. And you gently pull it out. Pretty, Elliot. Ooh, I like it. So they make these really pretty flowers.
Looks like a. Almost like a bow.
Pretty.
Looks like a bow. All you need is a line, and it would look like a bow.
So that's it for us today. We made some pretty flowers. You guys can make whatever color you want. You can use either ink or paint or whatever, but they make these really beautiful flowers. So do you have anything else?
Nyeh.
No. Okay, so thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You can sponsor KMNH News and other Happen Online programming as a BFF. BFF does stand for Best Friend Forever, and here at Happen it means even more. BFF stands for Business, Family, or Friend Supporter. If you are a BFF and want to be a BFF donor, for just $100 or more, you can keep Happn's online support happening. We will recognize and thank you on air for your donations. Just go to Happn's website, happeninc.org, and click on the Give a Gift and the Donation button, and leave in the Send a Note area that you would like to be a KMNH sponsor. We want to thank you in advance for being a Happen BFF.
We have a very special guest on KMNH today. You may have seen his work on permanent display at Happen Studios, or maybe you've read a few of his illustrated books at the Happen Reading Window, like The Garbage Bar, Elvis, or The Secret Subway. He has been recognized and has won several illustration awards. Actually, this month he won a gold medal for editorial illustrations at the Spectrum 27 Awards. His work has been in New York Times, Rolling Stone magazines, and many other publications. What's really cool is he went to school right here in Cincinnati at the Art Academy. Chris Sickles, welcome to KMNH, and let me start by asking, when did you first start making art? Did you take lessons? And what is a 3D illustrator? And how would you describe that line of work?
Hi. Nice to meet you, Larkin. My name's Chris. I'm coming to you from Greenfield, Indiana, which is about 100 miles from my garage to Happen headquarters in Northside. I think I've always been making art. When I watch my kids draw, especially when they're younger, it's not about the art, it's about the mark, you know? So I've been making marks all my life. I think the oldest drawing I have is from 1980. I was 6 years old. It's of a buffalo. And I think the biggest thing for me is that I've always been encouraged to keep drawing, because I think drawing is the true foundation of art, you know. Did I take lessons? Yes. I had a wonderful art teacher in elementary school, Mrs. Cooper. My art teacher in junior high and high school was Mrs. Martin, and I can honestly say that without Mrs. Martin and what she taught me about foundations and core, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today without her. And I went to college at the Art Academy of Cincinnati, and that's where I really learned what illustration was and how art could be so much more than when I grew up thinking it would be, where you would either design shampoo bottles or do paintings to hang over people's couches. I didn't know that there was a whole spectrum of art in between those two extremes. So that's what I really learned at the Art Academy, is that art can be anything. So yeah, I think lessons are very important. I think also what's important is to draw. Because there is no wrong or right way to do art. There's things to understand about art and things to learn about art, but honestly, it comes down to you drawing like you draw and pursuing what you're passionate about through those drawings. Your other question is, what is a 3D illustrator? I'm going to take it back just a little bit and say answer what an illustrator is. Because that's essentially what I am. I work in 3D, but I am an illustrator. And an illustrator is a visual problem solver, right? An illustrator is somebody that comes to you with a book that needs to have a cover, and they'll ask you to create an image, options for an image for what can kind of sum up the book in one image. And obviously, it's not going to be everything about the book. It's not going to be all the characters. It's not going to be all the scenes. It's kind of trying to find the essence of the book and put that on the cover. Because essentially, when somebody's walking to a bookstore or browsing online, they want to see a cover that's interesting and pulls them into the book. And then that's where the author does their work, when you actually crack the book open. As far as the kids' books, picture books, it's a little more open. As far as the images are to tell a lot of the story as well. But essentially, that's what an illustrator does. We visually problem solve how best to tell this story. You know, the author does their part, but the illustrator sort of has to find a way to visually tell the story as well, without competing with the author, sort of working side by side. Another way an illustrator works are for magazines. So this is a magazine about investment strategies, right? So half of the stuff in this, I have no idea what it means. But if you look through and you find these illustrations, they really kind of put a visual to sometimes an article that's very hard to read as in layman terms. Things can be much different. So you can see this magazine is chock full of illustrations. Not necessarily my work, but works of illustrators that I admire and look up to. So a lot of times a good magazine will be like walking through a gallery where you'll see illustrations by all types of artists from all walks of life. I was fortunate enough to have the piece on the cover there. It was all about being driven, so driven cars. That was one of the concepts I came up with, and the art director really wanted a car that showed lots of options, all kinds of levers and gears, and that you kind of have to juggle all these things at one time to make it work. So that's essentially what an illustrator is. I do dimensional work in that I create these little puppets, and then I photograph those, and the photographs are essentially the illustrations. That's sort of how I build my worlds. Sometimes they can be kind of tiny. Sometimes they can be super tiny. Sometimes they can be a little bit larger. Sometimes they can even get sort of fantastical. I call them impractical fantastical. So this is a piano. It's got 4 legs and a head. It's not a horse. It's not a cat. I don't know exactly what it is. But stuff like this I love to build as well.
Well, what advice do you give young artists who are preparing to make their mark in the art world?
Like I mentioned before about as far as where we all start with making marks, right? So trust the way that you make marks. And if you trust the way that you draw, if you trust the way that you see the world, and you create the images that are through you and that you are passionate about, everybody else will see that passion. Just draw and see where it takes you. And let yourself be surprised by that drawing. So thanks for your time. I appreciate it. And goodbye from Indiana.
Thanks for watching KMNH News. Today, we would like to thank our family sponsors, the Agnews and English family. Today is Friday, April 17th. This is Omer, and I hope you'll tune in again next week for more KMNH.